I would like to welcome to the stage Associate Clinical Professor Mark Lane, President of the Royal Australasian College of Physicians, to give the President's welcome.
E tane mā, wahine mā, nā mai ki te RACP whakatoa haitanga mō te taunei. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this year's Congress. Fellows and members of the Royal Australasian College of Physicians, Congress sponsors, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure as President of the RACP and as a New Zealander to welcome you to Aotearoa, New Zealand. We did time Congress very carefully so a whole bunch of Australians could leave Australia during the time of their federal elections. It seems to me that Australian Prime Ministers work on the revolving door system, and I suspect you're about to have another Prime Minister in the not too distant future. I was trying to figure out with the CEO how many Prime Ministers Australia's had in the last short while, and it's certainly 5, and it looks like it's going to become 6. During the same period of time, New Zealand has had 2 Prime Ministers. So if any Australians want to emigrate to New Zealand, to a country of some stability, you can make applications at morning break, but don't rush, there may be a very long queue. But seriously, welcome to those of you who have made the journey across the ditch from Australia. Welcome to New Zealand, and also welcome to the many other guests who have come from the United States, from Fiji, from Hong Kong, from Singapore, from Sri Lanka, from the United Kingdom. There are many of you, and hope you'll forgive me if I don't give you a very long list of names at this point in time. While you're here in New Zealand, I do hope you take the opportunity to explore our beautiful city. Some of my board directors went for a walk up Mount Eden, they called it. I think they just thought it was a little Mount Everest. And just to enjoy one of the volcanic cones that exists in our beautiful city, just to let you know that there are actually 50 plus of them, and that Auckland is technically an active volcanic area. Anyway, the business of Congress in 2019. Our theme is impacting health along the life course. It's a special interest of mine. Although I trained as an adult gastroenterologist, I became aware later in my career of something called the Barker hypothesis, which talked about how the developmental origins, things that happen before even conception, during the perinatal period, and subsequently have huge impacts decades down the line on people's health. You can see then, even in the early days, that early intervention was likely to improve the health of people over a long period of time. I'd like to acknowledge that the Liggins Institute here in Auckland has done a lot of the basic science along with many other people around the world, and acknowledge that Sir Peter Gluckman, one of our distinguished fellows, has been in the forefront of this research over many years. Basically, over years, the Barker's hypothesis, I think, has been well accepted now. And I'd also like to acknowledge the Dunedin project, which has looked at a cohort of young people identified at the time of birth and followed them through many years, decades now, and again identifying that many of the health issues, the social issues that are apparent in people's later in lives actually can be identified back in issues that occurred in their early life. I look forward to hearing a lot more about these issues during today's and the next 2 days of Congress. I was introduced to the first 1,000 days concept by another one of our fellows, Des Gorman. And it seemed to me that the 1,000 days concept, which is that if we put intervention into the health of young people before they become parents, we put time and effort into them during their parenting phases, that we put time and effort into the young children born, the first 1,000 days being the prenatal period and those first 2 years of life, we can make a huge difference to the future of those young people. But not just to the future of those young people, to the future of our whole society. Not just health, but society's things, criminality, success, employment, all have things that we can actually fix in the first few years of life. I guess the other end of that spectrum is the concept of the older person like me, which is also going to be discussed at the Congress. And how do we move through various phases of our lives, from childhood to student to parent, and for me the transition is to retirement. I think that discussions on health over the whole life course, the topic of this Congress, is very, very crucial for us to think about. Last year, my predecessor, Dr. Catherine Yelland, launched the Indigenous Framework, and that focuses on the health issues of the Indigenous peoples of both Australia and New Zealand. The Indigenous peoples of both our countries suffer in many ways. They have poorer health outcomes. Society has not done well by them. And I was talking to Noel, who you just heard earlier, about where are the origins of the poor outcomes for the Indigenous peoples of both our countries. And the theme I've heard from both Australia and New Zealand, and in the many other places I've travelled listening to Indigenous peoples talking about health, is the important issues of culture or its loss, land or its loss, independence or its loss. Those things have had profound effects on the health of our Indigenous people, and in our Indigenous framework we certainly aim to start impacting on some of those issues. Our keynote speaker next is Sir Mason Durie, and Sir Mason Durie has described the Maori approach to health and well-being as health in a house, or te wharapapawha. What it means to health and well-being is like a house with four sides. Tia tinana, our bodies, our physical health. Tia taha tinangaro, our minds. Taha whanau, our families. Taha wairua, our meaning, our purpose, the spiritual dimension of our lives. We can't see health in isolation as a physical issue. We need to see health in the whole context of a person. As a profession, we need to identify these connections that impact health over our life course. This Congress is an opportunity for us to take a broader view of health as exemplified by Te Kanga Māori, the Māori way of doing things, and to gain new perspectives on how we might improve patient outcomes. The perspectives on offer over the next few days are impressive, covering everything from the first 1,000 days, opioid addiction, physician training, and really important, physician well-being. And as well as Sir Mason Durie, our speakers include Professor Lex Doyle, a leading researcher in the evaluation and impact of neonatal intensive care. Professor Yati Soeharto, a leading physician who has been called the mother of modern paediatrics in Indonesia. Professor Sandra Eads, a leading researcher who has made outstanding contributions to the epidemiology of Indigenous health in Australia. Professor Chris Poulos, who is leading the development of community-based rehabilitation and restorative care programs for older people. Professor Suresh Sundram, a leading advocate for the mental health of asylum seekers. Professor Marion Dollard, a leading researcher in the field of workplace health and safety, especially in workplace psychosocial factors. It's going to be a great Congress. There's much for you to look forward to and much to learn over the next few days. We also have a dedicated fringe festival that I'd encourage you to explore. It's a relaxation zone. I'm intending to make use of it quite extensively over the next day or two. It's a place you can go apparently for yoga or Pilates classes, or see an exhibition of the art and photography of your fellow physicians, or just about finding about alternative ways to look at your own health. I want to place a special thanks to the Congress Program Committee, led ably by David, for making this event possible. It's a magnificent effort, David, and we're looking forward to the next few days. And thank you so much, everybody, for taking the time to come. Have a great Congress. Noriera nā ki nāhau ki tēnei hui niwi. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa.